In today's video, we're going to be discussing the Ratlings, everyone's favorite cooks, food thieves, gear thieves, and snipers. So here I'm showing you the kind of second generation sculpts of the Ratlings. So mine are the original metal models here. So these are not resin. I've had these for quite a while and actually got them from a blister pack at a local gaming store long ago. These are some amazing sculpts too. I mean, the details on them were phenomenal. And this just showcases the quality level of some of these old metal sculpts that GW has had over the years. I mean, the face on this one and all of them really are just fantastic. They got great little details like pouches and like bags of food and other stuff on them. They're really wonderful, full of character and flavor, and I just absolutely love them. I'm sure they will be getting an update at some point, and it will probably make me sad because I really like these old sculpts. I did like what they did with Rain and Rouse and Blackstone Fortress, but we'll see when they go to redo the entire unit. No more wasting time, let's dive into it. As always, their stat line. They have movement 6, toughness 2, toughness 2. They have a 6-up save, 1 wound, leadership 8, OC 1. So they may literally, no they do, they have the worst stat line in the Astra Militarum. There is nothing that has a worse stat line than this unit here. At T2, everything wounds them on a 3 if not a 4. At save 6, any AP just does it in for them. At leadership 8, they struggle to make even basic leadership tests. Although most of the time you're not going to have to, because if somebody shoots at them or winks at them, the unit's destroyed, right? And they can't really hold objectives very well. You can max. They're only a 5-man unit, no more, no less. And OC1s, that means OC5 at best. They're not taking anything. Let's talk about their war gear, and then let's dive into abilities. So they have 1 ranged weapon. It's a sniper rifle. It's got heavy and precision. So that means +1 to hit if it stayed still. And precision means you can allocate a wound to a character model even if they're attached to a bodyguard unit, which is really cool. Range 36 inches. That's pretty good. They can really reach out and touch somebody with that. 1 shot each. Ballistic skill 3. So that means on a turn in which they stayed still, most of the time they will, not always, you're going to be hitting on 2s. Strength 4, AP -2, flat 2 damage. Now, I want to draw attention to that real quick. Strength 4, -2 AP, flat 2 damage. That means even if there is not a character to kill, this unit is also good at killing Space Marines. Just outright. Chaos Space Marines, regular Space Marines. They're going to be winning on 4s. They're going to be making saves on 5s, if not in cover. And then for every failed save, it kills a Space Marine. And that is not bad. That's not bad at all. So they're good at both killing characters and just elite infantry in general. Now for melee, nothing exciting here. They got close combat weapons, 1 attack, weapon skill 5, strength 2, no AP, 1 damage. Strength 2. They're not hurting anybody. Like they would struggle to beat up Nurglings in hand-to-hand combat. So let's talk about their abilities. They have infiltrators and stealth. So they can deploy into the middle of the table when deploying, and they're always -1 to be hit. That's something good to remember because they didn't used to have a rule like that before. They used to have where they gained an additional bonus to their save when they were in cover in previous editions. And now they get stealth instead, which I think is a really great trade-off here. I think that's a really great way of keeping them alive, and it's much more effective than +1 to their save. So their special unit ability, what sets them apart from everything else besides their terrible stat line, is Shoot, Sharp, and Scarper. In your shooting phase, after this unit has shot, if it is not within engagement range of any enemy units, it can make a normal move as if it were your movement phase. If it does, until the end of the turn, this unit is not eligible to declare charge. In other words, you have them here. They're up on the 2nd floor in their great vantage point. They fire their weapons, and then you move them down out of line of sight and into cover, right? After they have shot. So that's really important. So if you get a chance to put them in a position where they can shoot turn one, that means you can immediately get out of line of sight. But that also means if you got to move in the line of sight to shoot, they're not just left hung out to dry. You can quickly move them back out of their vantage point, whether it's a street corner or whether it's up here on an upper floor, and take them down somewhere where they cannot be seen and hopefully keep them alive a bit longer. So let's dive into strategies and tactics. Now, after going over all this is definitely a midfield unit, but one which will not live. I think their best role is done playing closer to your deployment zone in the midfield. The reason being, you're going to want them somewhere where they can move out, get line of sight, fire their weapons, and then duck back in behind a building or a container or something where they can't be seen, because they get that free movement at the end of every shooting phase where they shoot and aren't within engagement range of anything. So that's, really great. So if your opponent isn't able to push up into you, so these are closer to your deployment zone, and then you push your army past your Ratlings, right? Past them. So you've now screened your Ratlings, and they can just jump out, shoot, and jump back, jump out, shoot, and jump back. I think it's really fantastic way of utilizing them. That's how I use them most of the time. I don't even use them to try to take out characters most of the time. Honestly, I'm using them to typically kill Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines because they're fairly good at it. They're a great harassing unit. That's one way to use them. So that's looking at them for their killing power, right? The other thing is they're one of the very few units, and really the only one that we have that gets infiltrate. So that allows them to get into the middle of the board and potentially grab center objectives before the game even begins. But the issue with that is that they die so easily. So especially if you're up against the melee army, this unit's gone. If you're up against an army that moves fast, the unit's gone. If your opponent can shoot and can move to see them, they're gone. They just have no survivability. So it's hard to infiltrate them to capture objectives. It depends on the mission, depends on the map, depends on terrain, but really that's going to be a niche thing to be able to do with this unit. So then the third strategy that you could employ with them would be to screen. Because they have infiltrate, that means you could block out your opponent's infiltrators or your opponent's scout units. Now that right there becomes really handy. This is our only unit that can do it. It's relatively cheap in points, and it's more than likely going to stay that way. So you can move this unit to a point in the battlefield that'll prevent your opponent from being able to come in further, even if they don't grab an objective. So, because remember, when you finish the scout move, you got to still be more than 9 inches away from enemy units, so on and so forth. I'm pretty sure that's a rule. If I'm wrong, you all are going to point it out in the comments down below. It doesn't matter. So, they basically can screen. They can screen out other infiltrators, right? And they can kind of just block your opponent from gaining advantage. If you don't do that, and say you go up against something like a Phobos Space Marine army, they're going to infiltrate onto the middle of the board, and they're going to capture everything right at the start, and you're going to have a hard time shifting them off the objectives unless you just overwhelm them with our amazing OC battle line units, right? So Cadians and Krieg and Catachin and regular infantry squads with, like, say, a regimental banner. So you give them +1 OC, you take them 20-man blobs, and you're talking like OC 60 without even considering the command squads, right? Absolutely absurd. You run them up, you capture something, that's a way to do it. But if you don't want to have to go through all that headache, and really not the most effective way to play guard most of the time, depending on your matchups, depending on your opponent's strategy and army list and so forth, this unit can help screen out so that does not happen to you, to prevent your opponent from getting that significant advantage at the beginning of the game. The other thing you got to be careful about, depending on your matchup though, if you're using this to screen, don't let this unit be a unit that is charged and then helps your opponent slingshot onto an objective or closer to your other units. You got to be careful about that as well. It's something to keep in mind when playing melee armies. or even armies that aren't melee because you have a clever opponent. They're like, oh, well, this is a way to get extra movement, and I need to get across the board to capture objectives. Done, right? So the unit really has 3 different ways you could play it, 3 different strategies that you can employ, and I think all are valid, but it depends on how you're writing your list. It depends on your matchup and your missions and the terrain. Most of the time, I take it for the first one, which is a harassing, killing unit that's going to be near my deployment zone, jump out, shoot my opponent, jump back in the cover, and then can't be seen. And it's just going to annoy my opponent. They're going to want to come after the Ratlings, but then can't. It's going to be between the Ratlings and my opponent. I'm going to drive up a Chimera with Ogren in it. I'm going to be like, yeah, come for him, buddy. Go ahead, come for him. We want you to. We want you to get next to these Ogrens inside this tin can that they're desperate to get out of, right? And that's a great way to do it. And you can bait your opponent that way when you're harassing them, especially if they happen to put up a bodyguard unit that's got a leader attached and you pop that character, right? You pop that key character, your opponent's going to be like, oh, those Ratlings are a problem. I'm going to go and take care of them. And if you are thinking about killing characters that way as part of your strategy, you know, go with option 1, they're a killing unit, you're using them that way, and you're killing characters rather than blobs of elite infantry. This unit is way cheaper than a Vindicare Assassin. Not as effective, but way cheaper. And so it's a better unit to be able to harass or to scare your opponent with, you know, not being able to keep their characters alive and get those amazing synergies that they need. So that, I think, is the best way to play Ratlings. You also, I'm telling you right now, if you're a guard commander, we should already be okay with sacrificing units and just letting them die for our overall goals and strategy. You have to be okay with Ratlings dying. They're going to die every time. They're going to be absolutely obliterated. I've never had a unit of Ratlings survive a game. Never, it's never happened. Because once my opponent finds out they're T2, they laugh and then they make them disappear. And that's it. That's the end of it. That's it. That's all I got today for Ratlings. I mean, they're really straightforward. So if there's anything I've forgotten to mention, please put it down in the comments below. The more we all communicate and learn from one another, the better we play this game. The better we play this game, the more fun that we have. And the more fun that our opponents have too, as we continue to challenge each other, come up with creative ways to play Warhammer 40K. If you want to support me, check out the links below. You can also just like and subscribe to the video, but I do have affiliate links down below for clear movement trays and red grass games, painting, and hobby supplies that I also really love. I love both of those things. So check that out as well. And that's it. I just hope you come back for the next unit review or the next battle report or whatever else it is that I'm doing. And I hope you enjoy it. So I'm very thankful to be here to help inspire and give back to the community. And I really appreciate each and every one of you. So as always, have fun wargaming. And remember, Cadia stands.